And we welcome you into this interview information session. We'll call it today. I'm Kenneth Reese, founder, owner, and operator of WataugaOnline.com, and glad to be joined again. It's been about a month, I guess, since we last talked to Dr. Scott Elliott, superintendent of Watauga County Schools. And friends, I don't have to tell you the changes that has happened since schools have let out at the end of May. And now we are, as of this recording, a month and 1 day away from the opening of schools. And Dr. Elliott, we got some guidance from Governor Roy Cooper and Health and Human Services Secretary Dr. Mandy Cohen earlier this week about the opening of schools. So let's start there. Let's start with Watauga County. What is the plan? And we've got a bunch of social media questions we'll get to as well. So I'll turn it over to you right off the bat.
Great. Well, hello, Kenneth, and it's good to see you, and thank you for having me back on the program. Yes, a lot has changed since just we last spoke, but just, it's hard to think all the way back to March the 14th when the governor made the announcement on that Saturday afternoon that schools would be turning to all remote instruction. And if you had asked me then what kind of situation we would have been in now, I would have never dreamed that we would be where we are today and having to rethink plans for the start of the school year. I was really more optimistic that our public health conditions would be going in a different direction or more under control than what they are now. As you said, we heard the announcement from the governor this week. We actually anticipated that that announcement was going to be made back on July the 1st, and we were surprised when Governor Cooper kind of punted and delayed that decision almost 2 weeks. I think that was an attempt also to try to be optimistic and see if the health data were going in a different direction and maybe that we would be able to reopen schools at 100% capacity. But it turns out that's not the case. The governor made the announcement that schools in North Carolina will open or operate under the Plan B. That's what we had described as being at 50% capacity with moderate social distancing. He also gave the option for school systems to be more restrictive than that and opening on Plan C. And we met with our Board of Education this week. And after the parent surveys that we conducted, the staff survey that we're currently conducting, like many of the school systems around us, we are going to attempt to start school on a Plan B with what we are calling a 2x3 flex model. And if you'd like, I can explain a little bit more about what that looks like for your daughter and my children and others in the school system. So in order to try to reduce the capacity of students in school and to maintain the 6 feet of required social distancing that is in the plan, we are dividing our students roughly into 2 cohorts. And I saw some questions in social media about how those will be divided. We're not ready to send out class lists yet, but roughly the first half of the alphabet will come to school on Mondays and Tuesdays. The latter part of the alphabet will come on Thursdays and Fridays, with some exceptions, with trying to keep families together, siblings in the same household who might have different last names, or families with foster children or situations like that. But principals are currently working on those class lists and trying to divide the students equally. So half of students roughly will come to school on Monday and Tuesday, and then they will be in remote instruction Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So 2 days on, 3 days off, the 2x3 flex. The other half of students will have the opposite schedule, where they will be in remote instruction Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they'll come to school for face-to-face instruction Thursday and Friday. Wednesday will be that day when all students are in remote instruction. That will provide teachers time for planning, for office hours, for working with small groups of students virtually online, for teachers to work together on planning their lessons, and also just to have time left alone to work and plan. It will also allow our school staff to do deeper cleaning out in the schools and to try to reset the school, if you will, for that next group of students to come in.
Now, when you say the alphabet, let me clarify that real quick. We're talking first names, last names?
Yes, thank you. Last names. We haven't decided exactly what letter we're going to divide that off on. So for those folks that are in the KLMNs, maybe just remain flexible with us for just a little bit. But no, the goal is that for the most part, students whose last names begin with a letter in the alphabet in the first part of the alphabet would go to school in person on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mm-hmm. Those with last names in the latter part of the alphabet would go to school on Thursdays and Fridays, with exceptions given to trying to match families together and keep families on the same schedules.
And I just wanted to clarify that because I have gotten some social media questions, uh, not necessarily now, but back when we were doing the book, come pick up your materials. There were some folks that were confused by that, and I get it as well. There is no question that is not too. It's almost like when you're in school. There's no question that's not too,
Right.
whatever you want to say, silly or whatever to ask, especially in these times.
That's
Okay.
right.
So there again, to back up and reiterate, it'll be a 2-by-3 plan. Students will be in the schools 2 days. Wednesdays, all students are remote learning, and then uh, the kids that are not in school, the first 2 days will be the last 2 days. Right.
That's correct.
That's it in a nutshell.
That's it in a nutshell. And you know, I know that for folks who are wanting absolute, finite, clear, definitive answers, that this is a very difficult time because we're working through all of these things, and things are continually evolving and changing. There might be some exceptions to what I just said, you know, related to, you know, maybe teacher schedules or something else, but we're not going to be able to accommodate every request that we might get for changes of schedules.
Right.
But we'll at least try to accommodate families and keeping siblings on the same schedule to the extent possible.
I've got a bunch of social media questions. We'll get to those in a moment. And that will take up pretty much all of our time. The only other thing that I can think of right off the top of my head, and the reason I think about this is because 2 hours ago, I went and picked up my daughter's lunch that is still being distributed, in our case, at Valley Cruces School. Watauga High School is the other location, and that lasts for 2 more weeks, right? July the 30th is the end date.
That's right. As of today, I know you always ask me these updates. As of today, the team has distributed 243,000 meals
Wow.
to children throughout the community since March the 17th. Just cannot continue to say enough about those child nutrition employees, the bus drivers, the teachers' assistants, teachers, principals, everyone who's had their hands on that work to continue to meet the needs of our families. We don't know what remote meal service might look like next school year because we'll be serving food to children when they're at school.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent possible, we hope to maybe have some curbside service or something. Most likely will not be doing meal deliveries.
Okay.
It might be that we send home meals with families on the days that they're at school, that take meals home with them. We'll do something.
But all of that is still being worked out. And that was going to be my question of what do you know at this point, a month and 1 day away would do. So that's still in the works. I do know because I talked to the supervisor at Valley Cruces School today for the cafeteria, and she was telling me that July 30th, and then there'll be a break to get ready for school. And so I would imagine that would include them being able to order food and that kind of thing to get ready. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And so, you know, as Miss Tabby explained to you, there just has to be some turnaround time. It's really only about 2.5 weeks in between the end of June and August the 17th and our first day of school. We're going to need to be ordering new supplies. The way that we'll prepare and serve meals in our cafeteria in order to ensure that the health and safety protocols is going to be different. There will be no more self-serving of items, no buffet style, self-serve kind of things. So that we're probably looking at more boxed and pre-prepared meals like we have been having this summer. For some children will be eating in the cafeteria. Some classes will be taking their meals back to the classrooms with them. Some will be going outside and having picnics for lunch. And that's going to require changes in the way that we normally operate our cafeterias. They need time to work and prepare for that.
Okay. All right. I asked through social media for some questions, and let's get to those because there are quite a few. Let me do a page refresh here real quick. All right. The first one, I'll just kind of take them in order as how I can get them. When should we expect to hear which days our children will attend school? And I apologize if we repeat some of these, but it's better to repeat them and maybe get the same answer than just skip over them. So when should we expect to hear which days children will attend school?
Probably about the time that we normally would hear about class sizes, class lists, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We try to do those usually around the 1st of August. The difficulty this year with that is going to be that we first need to know which families sign up for our all remote Watauga Virtual Academy. Now, that's probably also a question that you have. So later the evening, we're recording this on Thursday, later this evening, the Watauga Virtual Academy application and our guidebook that helps to explain some of the safety procedures and protocols for how we plan to reopen school will be made public and sent out to parents. Will be put on our website. We're going to give parents about a week and a half, about 10 days to fill out the application for the virtual academy. We'll then look at how many of our staff members have requested an accommodation or remote work situation because of their own health conditions. We'll pair that together with the number of students who need a remote learning option, with some priority given to those who have health conditions. And then we'll see, how many staff we have to be able to accommodate others who want the all remote options. Once we see which staff members we have left and which students we have left, we'll begin to create those class lists. It's going to be a lot of work over the next 2 weeks. I'm hoping that certainly well before a week or two before school starts. Again, I throw August 1st out there as the date that we usually put out our class lists.
Yeah.
It'll be a challenge to do that this year, but that's kind of our target.
Now, to clarify, the Watauga Virtual Academy is what you're calling the online learning at any point, whether students are doing it one day or every day. I mean,
that's right. So
okay.
The school year is going to have two major components, and I appreciate that clarification, Ken. If students are coming to school with us at the school site, they are on our 2x3 flex. They're showing up 2 days, they're in remote learning 3 days. If there are families that does not work for them, either because their child has a significant health condition that puts them at elevated risk for a COVID-related illness, or because an immediate family member is, or if just because these schedules don't work for families, or there's some other reason that they need an all remote option, we are asking families to apply for our new Watauga Virtual Academy. Okay. It'll be school all online. Students won't come to the school building at all. We ask parents to commit to at least a semester of doing that, because we're not going to be able to staff for what the school year starts like and then have an influx of people leaving the academy coming back to school in the middle of the semester. Yeah. So I've had the question, is it first come first serve? No, it's not. We'll first begin by meeting the needs of those children and families with those high risk health conditions. Then we will try to enroll and accommodate as many other families as possible.
Okay, let's move along. My daughter will be a senior. This is a question coming in for the viewer. My daughter will be a senior this year. Just wondering how they will choose which children will go to school with 2 or 3 days off, or 2 on 3 days off. With 2 on and 3 off days, how will we know which days they will attend? I know this is a little redundant. I thought there was something else in here. Will it be by last name? How will social distancing work with so many children? All of that was in one comment, by the way, for our viewers. So
yeah, appreciate that question from that parent, and I'm thinking about just how different the senior year is going to look again this year. So I think that we answered this in an earlier question, but just to clarify, it isn't that some children will come 2 days and some students will come 3 days. Every student will come 2 days and be remote 3 days. And we will let those families know as soon as possible which of the 2 days a week their children will be attending. We met yesterday with our partners with Caldwell Community College. We're looking at all of our online classes with the North Carolina Virtual Public School. We're looking at the classes that meet face-to-face and which of those can be remote, which must be face-to-face, those kind of things, what kind of elective options can be available in the Watauga Virtual Academy. All those kinds of questions we are working through right now. So that kind of helps to answer that parent's scheduling question. How will we ensure social distancing? First of all, it will be by, again, reducing the capacity and the number of students that are in school at one time. It will be minimizing the times that students are outside of the classroom, staggering the release times of when students change classes. It may be that many students don't use lockers anymore, but that we stagger times when students go to their lockers. I know that's a big deal in our middle schools.
Hmm.
Um, it will be, again, reducing the number of students who are in the cafeteria at one time. But the emphasis in the guidance that was updated this week when the governor made his announcement was on that 6 feet of social distancing. In addition to, I'm sure a question that we'll get to in just a moment is about face coverings, face masks and face shields. But we'll be screening students when they come to the building or when they first step onto the school bus, taking their temperatures. They come into the building, go straight to their classrooms, and then we'll, again, try to keep as much distance as possible in the classrooms by having the desks separated apart, facing in the same direction, all of those kinds of things. We're going to need parents' help, and we're going to need students' cooperation in ensuring that students are wearing those masks when they have to, and keeping 6 feet apart.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point too, because we as parents, educators, parents, guardians, I mean, we've been through a lot since March, and we're going to have to go through a lot more to get this school year going. And I think that's the key thing to emphasize too, is it's going to have to be patience on everybody's end to get ready for this. Dare I say new normal, but hopefully it's just for a very short term. Another question: will the parents have some form of virtual tour to see an example of what classrooms would look like? Um, and she went on to say, says, I know that sounds strange, but some of the other states have posted examples. Well, it doesn't really sound all that strange at all. I mean, no stranger than what we're having to deal with, to get ready for school. So
Yeah,
will
no, I don't know what qualifies as strange anymore, Kenneth.
me either.
That's a great question that the parent asked. I just finished meeting with all of our principals earlier today, and it was an idea that was suggested by one of our principals that, there is a lot of anxiety and uncertainty right now among our parents and our teachers, all of us, about what school's going to look like. So as much information as we can share ahead of time in interviews like this, but even giving parents a chance to visualize what school is going to look like. The back to school nights, the orientations, things like that are all going to be different, but especially for our first time parents, parents that are new to our schools, ninth grade parents like me, whose children are going into high school or kindergarten, families coming into kindergarten, will have a chance to, we hope, to come into the school and to visualize those classrooms. But we also hope to, or plan to, put together a real brief video that shows you pull up to the school in the car rider line. This is what's going to happen. You're going to be asked some questions. Your child's temperature is going to be taken. Then they're going to come up to the front door. They're going to walk through. This is what the hallways will look like with markings for 6 feet of separation. When they go into the classroom, this is what the classroom is going to look like. It's going to have fewer desks in it now. Each student's going to have, their own materials to minimize the sharing of, scissors and pencils and things
Yeah.
like that. School's going to look a lot like school always does. It's just going to be with fewer children and more safety precautions in place. Video is something that we can easily do. Probably we'll pick a school and do that at one school so that all parents can kind of get the idea.
Yeah.
But hopefully that'll help.
Well, and when you say uh, all of that about the virtual classrooms and what they will look like, think about how strange it was for us parents and guardians the first time we went into a grocery store or any other store a month ago and saw the 6 foot lines. Think
Right.
about how strange that was, how different that was. And I went to the grocery store early this morning, and I mean, I had my mask on, of course, but I didn't think nothing about those lines. Oh, there's a line. I'll stand there while the person's in front of me. So I think that's important to know once we get into hopefully the first week or two or three of school. Maybe we'll be able to get into a quick routine, all of us, hopefully.
Yes, and I want to say that again, lots of uncertainty and anxiety about what the school year looks like and what we're all going to need to do, as you said, to work together and be flexible. But we still want children to love and enjoy school, and they're still going to be there with those same loving and supportive teachers, and have as close to a normal a school year as we possibly can have.
Will there be any after school type programs on school days for working families?
Yes, currently we plan to operate our after school program for children who are in school on those days. So the children who go to school on Mondays and Tuesdays, we will have the after school program like we always do those afternoons for those children. then on Thursdays and Fridays, the children that are in school on those days will have the opportunity to go to after school on those days. We may, at least for the beginning of the start of the school year, and as you said earlier, we hope that things turn back to normal, sooner than later, but probably we are going to curtail some of our after school extracurricular activities and field trips for the time being. Currently, high school athletics are still on for the fall, and our students are out at the high school right now practicing and working out. We hope those things will continue. But yes, the after school care program for working parents will still operate.
We might have mentioned this earlier, but I'll mention it again. When can we expect a school supply list?
Many of those are already out. So I would ask them to check their school websites. They'll be popping up at local retail stores. I'll go ahead and check and see if those are already on our website. We hope to pare down those supply lists. We know that we should not be asking a lot of families financially right now, but you can expect for the normal basic school supplies of notebooks and pencils and colored pencils and things like that to be on the list. Go ahead and check your school's website and your teacher pages now. And I think most of you will find that those lists are already there.
This brings me to the mask. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did the governor not mention earlier this week in the guidance that students will be supplied with 5 masks that will be reusable? They're washable cloth masks, just like many of us use out and about now. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I just want to say that the changing requirements about face masks, seem to be evolving. It was a change for us and a surprise to us when the governor announced and the DHHS guidance changed to say that all children now in grades kindergarten through 12th grade will wear masks. So there are some caveats to that too, and I think it's worth us taking a minute or two to talk about it.
Sure.
Because as you know, the issue of face masks is one that many people have many different opinions about. We heard in our surveys that parents feel very strongly that children should be required to wear masks if they come back to school. We heard parents say very strongly that younger children should not be required to wear masks, and every opinion that you can possibly imagine. We're simply trying to follow the state requirements and the state guidance. So here's where that currently stands. The state is providing 5 washable, reusable masks for every staff member and every student in our schools. And every student in kindergarten through 12th grade should wear a mask. Now, we also heard some changing guidance today from DHHS that says that, of course, there are some children and some adults who have health concerns or health considerations where wearing a mask may not be appropriate or medically possible. There might even be times when instructionally it's not possible for a teacher to wear a face mask. Just think about when our little ones learn reading and pronunciation and enunciation of vowel sounds and words and things like that. Or think about story time, in kindergarten class. It makes a world of difference when a child can see the facial expressions and the movement of lips. We have children that get speech therapy or occupational therapy where that facial interaction is so important. We may have staff members or students who have significant respiratory conditions where wearing a mask may not be possible. It looks like DHHS is saying that in those limited conditions, that staff members and children will be allowed to wear a plastic face shield, where those shields cover to the side of the face and below the chin. I think that certainly is going to reassure a lot of parents and staff members that under some circumstances the masks are not going to be required for some people. We know though that wearing of the masks does help to prevent the spread of the virus, and that is a protective measure that needs to be followed when possible. But I also want to clarify what I think is a little bit of confusion because of the way the guidance has been worded. And that is that under the Plan B, everyone needs to be prepared to wear a mask or these face shields in limited circumstances. But in our schools, we must do everything possible to keep 6 feet of social distance. So desks will be 6 feet apart, kids at lockers, hopefully 6 feet apart, in PE, to the extent possible, 6 feet apart. And when when they can be 6 feet apart, they don't always have to be wearing their masks. So I've heard concerns about parents, how do you keep a mask on a little one for 7.5 hours a day?
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that anyone's going to be wearing a mask for 7.5 hours a day for as long as we maintain that 6 feet of social separation. That's not always going to be possible. Teachers and students need to be close to each other when teachers are maybe doing individualized help or helping to tie the shoes, or when students are walking down the hall to go to the cafeteria, lining up for the bus rider line, things like that. When it's not going to be possible for them to be 6 feet apart, they need to be prepared to wear their masks. But we're going to do everything possible to make that as comfortable as possible, and realize that there will be times when children and staff don't have to wear the masks. It's something that we're going to have to get used to. And it's something where we need a lot of cooperation and flexibility from parents about this. We're communicating with our local health officials, local pediatricians, and others, so that we can all be on the same page about the importance of wearing those masks, when the masks need to be worn, when they don't need to be worn, and those special circumstances and health conditions for children for whom a face shield is a better option. Now, if there are families out there that either because they have not been outside the home or for other reasons their children haven't been wearing masks, now's the time. Now's the time to begin practicing that. We will be having masks available at the schools. If any family needs cloth masks, we have those that we can hand out to families that need them. But just like we begin to help our children to get back into the routines of school, my children, they need to get back on their school year bedtime routines.
Yep.
We need to start getting organized and laying out our clothes. We need to, have our morning routines down, things like that. We need to begin getting used to wearing our masks.
And I tell you what, though, on a personal level, I've been kind of lucky. My child's mother was able to enroll her in camp a couple of days this week in Banner Elk, and they have to wear their mask all day. And I've asked my daughter several times, I said, how do you like it? And she said, I don't like it, but she said, I know we have to do it. And hopefully that will be, she'll be a 7th grader this year. So that hopefully, that'll rub off on the kids real quick that, hey, we have to do it. And maybe it'll just become like normal for them, and, maybe more normal for them than some of us adults, hopefully.
Kids are resilient and flexible for sure.
Yeah. How will mask wearing, I'll read off a couple of these. How will mask wearing be enforced for kindergartners? We just talked about that. Don't expect them to have the mask on the entire time as long as there's a social distancing. What will school day look like? Will they be in the classroom the entire day? And we've already said, how will it be decided which children go which days? Will a parent of a kindergartner be allowed to walk the child in for the first couple of days of drop off?
Yeah, so there were a couple of questions there that we haven't hit on yet, but I just want to say back to my comment about keeping the school experience as normal as possible. Yes, children will be in and out of their classrooms throughout the day like they normally would, going to art, going to PE, going to music. Now, some of those schedules are going to be different because we share staff across our schools, across the county. So those schedules are being worked on right now. It may be that we don't have the full array of options available to all of our children because of those schedules, but children will get to experience those fun and elective classes outside their classroom. They'll be going outside to play. They'll be going to recess. All of those things they'll be doing, but again, with social distancing and masks where appropriate. To answer the kindergarten question, we do hope to have a kindergarten orientation, bringing parents in small groups. That's going to look different from school to school. I haven't had this conversation with principals yet, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I surely do hope that for the first few days of school that those kindergarten parents will be able to walk in with their children and walk them down to the classroom and to see the classroom environment and to get to interact with the teacher and to be reassured that everything is okay. But they should know what to expect. So every adult that comes to the building is going to be screened. They're going to be asked a series of questions. They're going to have their temperature taken. It might be that if they are symptomatic or if they say that they have been someone who was suspected or confirmed case, they won't be allowed into the building. Though we fully expect that we'll be able to allow most people into the building because hopefully those folks won't show up if they're in those situations. But yes, we surely want our parents to feel invited and welcomed to come to the school buildings. And I know the joy and excitement of kindergarten. I have a picture right over my shoulder here of the first day of kindergarten for each of my
Oh,
two children.
it's something you never forget as a parent.
It's something you never forget as a parent, and certainly a joy that we want our parents to experience.
This is a pretty broad question. I was going to save it for last, but I'm afraid I'll miss it. What happens when someone at school gets COVID? Will the whole school have to quarantine?
Right. So, I wish that we weren't in this situation, and we're going to do everything that we possibly can to take all of the protective measures possible to protect our students and to protect our staff. And as you said earlier, there are no shortage of opinions about how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I've had very strong opinions and communication from parents this week who've said that, they don't understand why we're not in school, all students, every day. And then other parents who are very concerned and don't understand why we're asking students to go back at all. I know there's a wide range of concerns about that. And chief among them, and especially from our teachers, is how are we going to respond when we suspect that there are cases? So school is no different than anywhere else in our community. And our children and our teachers and our parents are going to be living out their lives all throughout the community, going to the store, as you said, going to church, visiting relatives' houses. I just want to say that in order for the school year to be as smooth and successful as possible, we are going to have to take appropriate precautions in every aspect of our lives. And we can't say it enough. The wearing of masks, the social distancing of 6 feet, hand washing, appropriate hygiene. And parents, I know this is always a concern, and it is in our family as well. But when children are sick or symptomatic, they're going to have to stay home. We're all going to have to work together to try to prevent the virus from coming into our schools in the first place. But just like local businesses that we have seen, and even in our school system among employees at other times since this all happened, we're going to have times when people may have come in contact with someone who was a confirmed case, or when they contracted themselves. This week also, with the governor's announcement, was a release of a fairly extensive reference guide for how we're going to handle suspected, presumptive, or confirmed cases. There are a lot of protocols of if, thens, and those kind of things, but it will mean that, if people are symptomatic or if they're confirmed, then they may have to go into quarantine for 10 or 14 days and not come back to school and just work remotely with their child's teacher. It might be that we have a teacher or a staff member in that same situation, and they will need to be, isolated or stay at home for that. We've been pressing hard and believe that we're beginning to get some information from the state about protecting those employees and their sick leave and leave time. There's no expectation that staff members will be using their own sick leave time or earned leave if they have to go into isolation. Now, will a confirmed case in a school automatically close the school down? No, not necessarily. It might. It will depend on the contact tracing. It will depend on the degree of the symptoms and how widespread they are and all of the circumstances. And we'll only be able to make those decisions in close coordination with our local health department, who at that point will be heavily involved, with good communication with our parents and families, and being cautious. And I will say, I don't want to send a mixed message here. We're going to do everything that we can to try to have school. And we know that we have a lot of families and teachers who want their children back, who want to be back in school. I know we have many who don't, but we do have others that do. This is going to be a monumental task for our school folks, for our teachers and principals, our facilities team, and others to coordinate this and make it work. And as you said, it's going to take everyone's cooperation to make it happen. But if we get to the point where statewide or countywide, the metrics are just going in the wrong direction for too long, and the local health department advises me that we need to take more protective measures, or if operationally we just cannot make this work, then we'll reevaluate our plans. But we're going to end up doing a lot of problem solving, and hopefully this is going to turn and get better. But if it doesn't, then we'll work through that when the time comes.
All right, let's see if we can roll through a couple more of these. I appreciate your time today. I know this interview and a little information session is running pretty long, but there's a lot of questions, and we'll try to get through the rest of these, because I know Dr. Elliott's got an extremely busy afternoon ahead of him as well. Will kids have will kids, I guess she's trying to say, will K-8 have specials like PE, music, art? You've already alluded to that. How will high school students enrolled in Watauga Innovation Academy be able to get hands-on experience in the trade classes like auto tech, carpentry, welding, if they're only in the classroom 2 days a week?
Yep. I talk about my own family a lot. I have a child who will be in the Watauga Innovation Academy in the health sciences, and those students will be going to those classes. And so it will mean that the teachers modify the kinds of work and assignments. Even in health sciences, even in automotive or carpentry, there is work that can be done remotely, things that can be read, things that can be done virtually using specialized software. And then on the days when they are in school, there'll be lots of laboratory hands-on work that is done to complete those parts of the curriculum. But a lot of these things, the parent specifically mentioned auto tech. Auto tech is a very high-tech technical skilled trade now, and there is a lot of classroom time, a lot of book time, if you will, or online learning. And it's not the same as being at school, but the teachers are excellent at this, and especially our auto tech program right now is just fantastic. And the teachers will figure out how to manage the 2 days that they're in school for as much hands-on work as possible, and the 3 days that they are at home working remotely.
What about pre-K? Will they follow the same rules and protocols as K-8? And do you, oh, I'm sorry, I thought they were asking when pre-K would start, but when does pre-K start?
Well, we typically start pre-K on the first day of school, like we do with other classes. We typically, you might recall from 7 years ago, phase in our kindergarten start, and that may look a little differently this year, and may look different from one school to another. That's another thing I want to emphasize, is that my friends in Bethel or at Mabel, they and their children might have a different schedule or a different way that they are experiencing school because of size and staffing than at some of our bigger schools. In some ways, this may be a little easier in some of our smaller schools to accommodate differences. But that aside, we will have probably a phased-in start to kindergarten. Pre-K will start just like normal. However, we will also have the 6 feet of social distancing, which means that probably in most of our programs, it will be a 2-day on, 3-day off type of schedule. We do have some really small pre-K programs, and depending on the enrollment, we might be able to accommodate them for more days than that. But right now, parents should plan on the 2 days on, the 3 days off. We are less sure right now about bus transportation for our pre-K students. We do want to provide bus transportation. That's something we choose to do. It's not a requirement in North Carolina, but it will have to do with bus capacity with the new rules around bus transportation. A lot of that is just going to get worked out probably during the first week of school.
All right, we'll roll through a little bit more of these because we are closing in on an hour already, and I didn't want it to be quite this long, but hopefully this will answer a lot of questions for now, and there will be more questions as we're recording this on Thursday, July the 16th. School starts a month and 1 day from today. What about I've had a lot of questions about this. Will face shields be allowed, or does it have to be a mask? I think we've already touched on that for the younger kids, but.
Yeah, I would say that people should plan for wearing cloth face masks or the surgical style face masks. And if there are medical exemptions with children who have those cases, then we'll want to see some documentation of that. But the face shields will be a really good option for those children.
Getting a few questions about grading. How will this person said their son's a freshman trying to lay the groundwork for college, concerned about 2 days in the classroom. How will grading be? And then I had a couple of more questions along those same lines. I mean, I heard you say somewhere else, I believe. I mean, this is school. It is school, and it will be different than what we did in March. Not to say that was lackluster or anything. That was a yeoman's effort on everybody's part to get that up and running. But there again, this is different. This is a new school year and a different school year.
That's right. I think that can't be said enough, Kenneth, that the teachers and parents worked so well together to have a fantastic experience with remote instruction. Some families and students did not. They struggled significantly with remote instruction. And the idea of having children come to school 2 days a week, as opposed to say every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, is our attempt to create some structure and routine for those children, to keep them in constant contact with their teachers and to have real clear expectations for the work that they are supposed to do. The 3 days when they are not in school is not off time. It is not going to be optional time. There are going to be assignments. There are going to be structured activities. There are going to be work that will be work that is graded. As you said, it will be school. Now, of course, teachers will be adapting the way in which they teach and the types of activities that they have for their students when they are in the remote instruction. But for those of us who are going to have high school children next year, in some ways, this is great preparation for college, for that blended learning approach and for those courses that students are going to have throughout their high school career. We have many students that by the time they get to their senior year, they're taking almost all remote, sometimes almost all college courses at that point. So teachers know how to do this, and our students will learn as well.
We got just a couple of more, Dr. Elliott, and boy, you've been so gracious with your time today. I think we answered this earlier. Will everyone who wants to attend the virtual academy be accepted? And I believe you answered that earlier on.
We're going to try. We're going to try. It's really going to be a 50,000 piece puzzle to put together.
And the only reason I kind of laugh about that, I think that's the motto for this entire school year. We're going to try.
I want every child who wants to be enrolled in Watauga County Schools to have the opportunity to do it. I'm so proud of our school system and of our teachers and what we are able to do, that whether it's in our remote virtual academy or whether it's on the 2x3 flex, I think children will benefit significantly from being a part of these local schools. It will simply be a matter of being able to have enough staff to do all the different things that are needed to be done. And I realize there will be some needs that we cannot meet, but we're going to try.
I think we have just 2 or 3 more. How about the Back to School Festival? How's that going to take place this year?
Look for those yellow buses that you see out on Blowing Rock Road and down in Perkinsville. The need is now greater than ever for back to school supplies for our children. The Back to School Festival is planned and scheduled. I don't have the dates right here in front of me.
I don't have the dates either, but I'll work on getting those.
We'll get those out to you. I think the plans right now from that committee is that it's going to be a 2-day event, not just a 1-day event. It probably will not look like it has in the past with lots of people coming into the school and going around the community fair and things like that. It could look like a drive-through curbside pickup of school supplies, or of just smaller groups coming in, lots of social distancing and protective measures. But in terms of helping students get connected to school supplies, that plan is still on a go.
No, we talked about pre-K a moment ago, and apologize if we did have this one just came in. What happens with pre-K? They have to be walked in, ? To their classroom, signed in, same signed out, walked out by parent. How will all that work?
That's already a little bit different in each of our schools. So as I said earlier, we have some schools where that pre-K entrance is almost directly into the pre-K classroom. Others come in from the front of the building. I don't know how those procedures might change. Ideally, those parents would still come in with their children and walk them in. But again, they should expect to be screened with the questions that we'll ask about their health, their temperature taken, and coming in. It might be that with the smaller numbers now, we find some other way to make that happen and meet the parents at the door. But that'll be something that those teachers communicate out to those parents.
All right, 2 more that I know of. If we choose online only, will they be in a virtual class with their normal classmates and teachers, or will it be a group of students from all over the county? Is there a limit on how many families can choose online only? I think
we already addressed the limit. Yeah, but in order to make this puzzle work, the pieces might have to go together differently than they have in the past. So let me just give you a little example of what that could look like. It could look like a student who is enrolled at a Green Valley school who chooses the remote virtual academy. they might be enrolled with a teacher from Green Valley.
Yeah.
But in that class, there might also be children from Cove Creek and Parkway and Valley Cruces, if that's what it takes to put together a class at that grade level. It could be that a child at Parkway is in a class with a teacher from Parkway, but also in a class with students from maybe a couple of different grade levels.
Yeah.
In order to make all of that work. We are not Charlotte Meck. We are not Wake County Schools. We don't have hundreds and thousands of teachers with all kinds of different licensure areas and all of the flexibility to be able to make any option work. We do intend to keep those students enrolled at their base school. If you're from Green Valley, you're still from Green Valley,
Yeah.
even if you're in a class with a teacher from Valley Cruces during this remote academy.
All right, I think the final question, someone had just sent this in via a Twitter, and I'll go ahead and ask because I wasn't going to leave any stone unturned. This person had said, no one asked Governor Cooper whether there was any discussion about starting school for students after Labor Day. Was there any discussion, and it would have allowed teachers more time to prepare, et cetera, et cetera? Do you know if that was ever discussed?
It wasn't discussed, and in fact, there remains significant political disagreements between our legislature, particularly the Senate, and the governor's office about when school should start. You might recall that the legislature, and again, particularly the Senate, wrote very specific and quite actually some fairly rigid school calendar requirements into the budget bill this year, and a disagreement that's ongoing right now as to whether or not even school can start with remote instruction. The governor says that it can, the attorney general says that it can, the Senate leadership says that it cannot. But it's our understanding from a ruling from the attorney general that it can. But I will say right now, even in the month and 1 day between now and the start of the school year, anything can happen.
Yep.
And that's maybe the one of two final thoughts I want to leave people with. The first is that we're going to continue to plan for the plan B and to do our very best to make that work for families. But we're going to continue to watch the health trends and see if at the state level or here locally, we need to take a different path. I hope that we won't. I hope things get better, and I hope we can work through this. But the second final thought is, as you said, we're all in this together. And our school teachers, our principals, our staff, our Board of Education, and we're working very hard to try to provide for our children's educational health and safety needs while balancing the health and safety of our staff and all of the resources that we have. We just ask for people's patience with us and flexibility as we try to figure it all out.
And I think that is a great final thought as we are closing in on an hour of this interview. And like I said before, I can't thank you enough for your time. I know it's been, like I said, a month or something like that more since we talked, and so much has changed. And so much will change again. And as you say, sometimes some of this stuff will change week to week again, just like it has in all of our what used to be normal lives. And we'll try and we'll get it done, because the Watauga staff, teachers, administrators, everyone. I mean, I tell the viewer this: think about how much everybody stepped up in March, when for the majority of the folks it was a total shock when the governor came on that Saturday and said we're closing schools effective immediately. And think about how much everybody stepped up then to the plate. So we've got some planning time now, maybe not as much as we wanted to, but there is planning time, and it'll be a great year. We'll just all have to work together.
Well said. Thank you, Ken.
Well, thank you for your time. And that is Watauga County School Superintendent Dr. Scott Elliott on this Thursday, July the 16th, as we end this interview just shy of 3 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kenneth Reese, founder, owner, and operator of WataugaOnline.com, and we'll touch base with Dr. Elliott soon here in the next couple of weeks. And until then, everyone, stay safe.